when I left off last time, we ended with the end of the first triumvirate and the victory of Julius Caesar. And we had said that that is where, in the Bible, in Genesis, that is where Jacob and Rebekah plotted against Isaac to convince Isaac that Jacob was in fact Esau. And then we had said that Esau was something like conqueror, hairy conqueror, hairy king. And so I was showing you that I believe that the three men of the triumvirate, how two of them fallen is like the sacrifice of two goats. The deception worked and Jacob received the blessing while acting like a conqueror, feeding the glory of victory in men to Greece, where the final decisive battle of the triumvirate occurred. And then we find ourselves here. And I left off kind of like hinting like, hey, Esau's still out there. So we're going to pick up on part 2 with the second part of this story. So if we take a look, this is, according to the Bible, entitled Esau's Last Hope. And it starts at verse 30 in chapter 27. So it reads, "Now it happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, that Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. He also had made savory food and brought it to his father, and said to his father, 'Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me.' And his father Isaac said to him, 'Who are you?' So he said, 'I am your son, your firstborn, Esau.' Then Isaac trembled exceedingly and said, 'Who? Where is the one who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate all of it before you came, and I have blessed him, and indeed he shall be blessed.' When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with an exceeding great and bitter cry, and said to his father, 'Bless me also, O my father.' But he said, 'Your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing.' And Esau said, 'Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and now look, he has taken away my blessing.' And he said, 'Have you not reserved a blessing for me?' Then Isaac answered and said to Esau, 'Indeed, I have made him your master, and all his brethren I have given to him as servants. With grain and wine I have sustained him. What shall I do now for you, my son?' And Esau said to his father, 'Have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me also, O my father.' And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac his father answered him and said to him, 'Behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of the heaven from above. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. And it shall come to pass when you become restless that you shall break his yoke from your neck. There is a whole lot happening here. And this is where it's going to get... It's not hard, but man, this is where the rubber meets the road. You really have to have a pretty solid understanding, because what happens in this story, and it happens elsewhere, is this is where what they teach you really begins to hurt you. And that's a complicated statement. What I mean by that is there is typically like a literalness and a straightforwardness that comes with most Bible stories. But with this, what I've been trying to explain is it's not literal. And there's a strange sort of fluidity that occurs in the names, but not in what the names mean. For example, Esau seems to be an awful lot of people. Go figure, historically, that a lot of people will take on the personification of a conqueror. Right? So it's almost, while it is specifically an area, it is also an attitude. And that's just something that, as I go forward, I just need you to understand, like, you're going to see Jacob fighting Jacob, but he is also Jacob fighting Esau, as they sort of shift this mindset. So the aggressor will often take on the role of Esau, and the defender will take on the role of Jacob. Except Jacob is always Jacob, so Esau doesn't take on roles that he shouldn't. It's just other people take on Esau, if that makes sense. So, all that being said, let's break this down a little bit at a time so it makes sense. So it starts with, now it happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. So we really have to pay attention here, right? So this is a verse that seems like a filler verse, if you're just traditionally understanding this. This is not a filler verse. There's no such thing anywhere as a filler verse. They've already taken an insane amount of information and pared it down to, like, there is no excess words, period. So when you have a sentence, even if it seems like a filler sentence, it is a killer sentence, not a filler sentence. For example, now it happened as soon. So if we state, and I state 100%, 125,000 million %, this is immediately preceding Julius Caesar's victory in Greece over Pompey of the first triumvirate. Immediately after that, barely has he left Greece and gone, where would you go after Greece? Right? And that's not as important right this second as the fact that somebody's coming in as somebody's going out. I mean, it says it twice. So, it's important because it says it happened as soon as Jacob had scarcely gone out. Like, they're not repeating that accidentally. So what happens pretty soon after the triumvirate? Right? And we'll get to this. I'm just see what the verses are saying. He also had made savory food and brought it to his father and said, "Let my father arise and eat his son's game, that your soul may bless me." So he had also done some killing of a kid, right? He also went out and got some game and made stew. He's bringing his victory to Greece right after the triumvirate, right after the Pompey Caesar battle. And he is now offering it to Greece. And his father said, "Excuse me? Who?" He said, "I am your firstborn, Mr. Conqueror." And then Isaac trembled exceedingly. That's not an accident phrase. And said, "Who? Who do you think you are? Where is the one who hunted game and brought it to me? Where is Mr. Caesar? I ate his stew already. I ate all of it. And I blessed him. I already gave him what there is to get. So he's going to get what there is to get." When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried an exceedingly great and bitter cry. Remember, wept means to go to war, to fight. And he said to Greece, "No, you're gonna give me some of that too. Bless me also, O Greece." But he said, "Your brother came with deceit." Your brother already came in here acting like a conqueror. He's already got what there is to get. So he's already taken what there is. There's nothing left to have. And Esau said, and this other conqueror said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. Remember, he lost the birthright in Greece, and he lost the blessing in Greece. So it keeps happening in Greece. He took away my blessing, and he said, "Have you not reserved anything for me? You got nothing? I can't have some of this?" And Isaac answered and said, "Indeed, I have made him your master." Sorry guys, you're Roman now. And all his brethren I have given to him as servants, and they're Roman too, with grain and wine. And they're going to, right? And Rome has the men in the culture that will sustain Rome, right? So Rome now has all these things, and there's no getting out of this. What do you want me to do? What shall I do now, huh? What do you want? Esau said to his father, have you only one blessing? Bless me also, O my father. And again, Esau lifted up his voice. He rose up. The Esau, the east, cried out and fought. So Isaac answers him, and he says, behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth and the dew of the heaven from above. By your sword you shall live. Which is true of Esau. A conqueror will have to live by his sword. That's kind of how that works. And you shall serve your brother. You will be Roman. However, and it shall come to pass when you become restless, that you shall break his yoke from your neck. Don't worry, guys. Eventually, you'll get rid of the Romans. Now, what I want you to notice in this is the blessing of Isaac to Esau. And what I'm going to show you is the blessing of Isaac to Jacob. And I want you to notice the interesting play between the two. So when he was talking to Jacob, he said, therefore may God give you, right? So he's saying, first off, this has come from the people. Second off, you get the dew of heaven and the fatness of earth and plenty of grain and wine. You get those things, Jacob. But Esau, his dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth and the dew of the heaven. It won't be his per se, but he will be around them to enjoy them, which means he's going to be right in the Roman mix. And then it says, let people serve you. Right in here. And you shall serve your brother. So what people shall serve him is Esau shall serve him, and he will be master over, like again, to Jacob he said, be master over your brethren, and to Esau he said, and you shall serve your brother. I thought there was another part. Indeed, I have made him your master and all his brethren. Whereas the thing said, be master over your brethren. So Jacob is clearly in charge. Rome clearly gets the pie. And let your mother's sons bow down to you. That would be Esau. You shall serve your brothers. That would be Esau. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and bless those who bless you. You're gonna get a chance to throw him off. So does that fall under the curse and blessings? I don't know. That's a different topic for a different day. So if we just go back real fast before we move forward and just look. Now it happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob. What event fits this description in this historical setting, in this geographical setting, that makes all these words go true. Right? Again, I'm not claiming any of this is a lie. I'm saying it's all true in the most bizarre, awesome way possible. So, what I want us to look at is the next event in after the first triumvirate. So, what we're looking at, this is where it's going to be like, I'm going to say things, it's going to, but you got to kind of like focus. We're playing 3-card Monte here. You just have to follow the cups because I've got to do a little bit of shuffling in order for this to work. So we're going to go to an event, which is not, it's not immediately after it. So there's an event after the event after. So this is the second event that is most of the chapter, but not the very first part of that little bit we just read. So there is something called the Liberator's Civil War. And now, I think for this video, we're going to hold off, but what this involves right here, this phrase liberator, if you had bothered to watch any of my stuff on Joseph and the French Revolution in America, like in Egypt, I started opening this door a little bit. We haven't opened it that much, but like, I know it's starting to get kind of full back here with all these things I keep saying, but just put it right there. Now, the Liberator's Civil War, and we'll get back to this in full here in a minute, but I want to show you, was started by the Second Triumvirate, which we have not fully gotten to avenge Julius Caesar's assassination. Julius Caesar was assassinated by a group of senators on the Ides of March, which is March 15th, 44 BC. During a meeting of the Senate at the Curia Pompei, they claim to be acting over fears that Caesar's unprecedented concentration of power during his dictatorship was undermining the Roman Republic. So, a very important thing that we've got to keep in our head, because again, this is all, it matters. You'll see in a minute, it matters very much. We're still in the Republic. Caesar, while the goat slayer, he pretended to take on the role of a conquering king. He isn't one, right? Even though he acted like one, he still officially is still part of the Republic. There's still senators, there's still this vestigial residue of Republic, right? That he's still operating under. So there is the Senate, and the senators, at least 60 to 70 senators and we haven't even gotten here yet. At some point we'll go down that road, but I have not gone down that road. It's a weird road. Right now we're kind of keeping things like normal weird. We haven't even gotten into like the this doesn't make sense weird. I'm thinking of a number between 60 and 70. Just saying. So 60 to 70 senators conspired and killed Caesar. One could say that Esau, and you'll see how this is Esau here in a second, also went out hunting and killed some game and created some stew. So in order to do that, you would need to have some animal that you have slain and served up. In this case, Esau's offering for, right? Esau. So imagine Esau in this case, and you'll see how in just a second, is now the senators that are clinging on to this old dying republic right before it transitions fully to the empire. So they're worried that Caesar is going to do that transitioning, so they conspire and kill him in the Senate, on the Senate floor. It's a famous event because they're trying to offer this up to Esau. And what is it that Esau, what did they say? They said something like, he also said, "Let my father arise and eat." Right? He's trying to gain this birthright back, or this blessing. But his father said, "No. Who are you? I'm the conqueror. I'm going to conquer now." And Isaac trembled exceedingly and said, "Where is the one who hunted game and brought it to me?" Where's Julius Caesar? Kind of reminds me, invokes the Cain and Abel story, like when God walks up to Cain and goes, "Hey, where's Abel?" In fact, one could argue it's exactly the story of Cain and Abel. Cain being the bureaucratic class, and Abel being the shepherd, the protector of the sheep. I mean, metaphorically speaking, it's exactly the same story where the jealousy and the fear, right? They'll justify it with a fear of maintaining the order, but really, if any one of them had an opportunity, they'd do the same thing. In fact, they're about to try to do the same thing. They're about to become Esau. So if we go back, we can begin to see that it says things like, despite the death of Caesar, the conspirators were unable to restore the institutions of the Republic. The ramifications of the assassination led to his martyrdom, the Liberators' Civil War, and ultimately the Roman Empire. So if we just scroll down here, Like, here's an interesting thing. Originally, the crowd started calling him King Rex, to which Caesar replied, "I'm not a king, but Caesar." And so that's an interesting, strange sort of thing that occurs. That he didn't want to be the king, and Octavian or Augustus would do a similar thing, but then Caesar became synonymous with king, same as the Tsar, and so on. So that's just a little piece of historical information. There was in fact a conspiracy. We do have a group, so it's not one person again. Esau in this case is going to represent the conspiracy of the senators. And so what happened is, in the aftermath, you have sort of this anger, this beginning to see the Roman lower classes with whom Caesar was popular became enraged that a small group of aristocrats had sacrificed Caesar. Antony capitalized on the grief of the Roman mob and threatened to unleash them on the Optimates, and that's who that the Optimates would be, sort of the group of aristocrats, perhaps with the intent of taking control himself. But Caesar had already named Octavian his grandnephew, his heir. So if Mark Antony had dreams of becoming the new Caesar at that point, it was unrealized. So if we go on down a little bit, it says to combat Brutus and Cassius. Brutus and Cassius, who were massing an enormous army in... hold on. So Octavian quickly gained support and admiration of Caesar's friends and supporters, blah, 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 to combat Brutus and Cassius, who were amassing an enormous army in Greece. Antony needed soldiers. The money from Caesar's war chest and the legitimacy that Caesar name would provide. So that the second triumvirate was officially formed. Okay, so as a direct result of the assassination, the assassinators fled to Greece and raised an army to reconquer Rome from the heirs of Caesar. In this case, it would be Octavius, with the aid of his two friends, forming the second triumvirate. And this now led to the Second Civil War, which... where did that go? Here we go. Because of that, the Second Triumvirate was officially formed, composed of Antony, Octavian, and Caesar's master of the horse, Lepidus. It formally defied Caesar's Divinus Lullus, and Caesar Octavian henceforth became son of the divine. Seeing that Caesar's clemency had resulted in his murder, the Second Triumvirate brought back proscription, abandoning since Sulla. It engaged in the League legally sanctioned murder of a large number of its opponents in order to fund its 45 legions in the Second Civil War against Brutus and Cassius. Not to give away too much, but Antony and Octavian defeated them at Philippi. And if you're... Oh, there it is. So that would be Greece. And Philippi is, from the book of Philippians, is a city in Greece. So in Greece, we have the assassinators, and we now have the vigilante justice coming after them. So if we just, in fact, hold on, let's just scroll down. So that takes us to the Liberator Civil War. So this is where the Second Triumvirate is formed, and now they are going after them. And I want you to notice an interesting... actually, it's not in this one, I believe. Here, in the Second Triumvirate, we have a map. And we'll get to this map again in a second, but I want us to see this real quick. Notice the red, Greece, you know, minus Egypt, this red and this yellow part really reminds me of, oh, I don't know, the Greek Empire. So in addition to taking on the persona of the aggressor and the conqueror, attempting to reconquer Rome out of the goodness of the Senate, they have also taken on the physical appearance of Esau. So that is a very interesting, and that's what I meant earlier, is you kind of have to understand it in order to, right? You have to be able to shuffle this, because it's going to change hands again here in just a minute after this. So we, right, the Liberator Civil War, and it is, what did we say it was? We'll go here. And it ended at the Battle of Philippi. I don't want to go there. It's probably here. So, at the Battle of Philippi, and this is where Mark Antony and Octavian let's read this sentence, and I want to read another verse, because again, some of you may be thinking this is a stretch. It might be, right? But if you start adding this all up, it becomes almost unstretchable. So look at this little phrase here. The battle between the Optimates and the Populares, which is going to become a central theme through. In fact, it's a super central theme of the Bible. The battle, involving up to 200,000 men in one of the largest of the Roman Civil War wars, consisted of two engagements in the plain west of the ancient city of Philippi. 200,000 in a world with, I don't know, I'd have to go look into this, but I don't think there was but maybe maybe 20 million Romans. There's probably less. I'm just, this is me. This is off the cuff, right? So, but let's just say there's 20 million Romans at the time, which I don't think there was that many. There's probably 10, but let's say there was 20. That would still represent like 2% of the people of Rome fighting at one time. Could you imagine 3 or 4 million Americans fighting in a battle? Or I guess it'd be more. Anyways, the math there is off the cuff math, so forgive me if it's wrong. But let's take a look at a verse. 200,000 soldiers. Then Isaac trembled exceedingly. Who? I'm a conqueror. Isaac, Greece, trembled exceedingly. These word choices are not accidental. I would say 200,000 men on a field of battle in Greece, in Isaac, is exceedingly trembling. Why? Because they're looking for Caesar, who was killed by Esau because of the blessing that he wanted. The Senate wanted to continue as the conquerors. Now, fine, if this game is conquering, you know what? If that's how this works, we'll do it too. We'll just do it as a group. We don't need to do it as an individual. So, the battle rages. The Liberators, gosh, that name is just life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So there you go. I'm going to stop right there. 19 legions. Holy cow. 17 legions. Yeah, those are insane. When you think about the wars between Caesar and Pompey, I think there might have been 7 or 10 respectively in each of those sides. So each side had that many people and then some. This is for all the marbles. Immediately following Jacob leaving the presence of Isaac, Esau shows up on Greece, exceeding. So if you're following me, you can see how this plays out. So lo and behold, Octavian and Mark Antony win. The aftermath is Brutus and all the other conspirators are assassinated or commit suicide. And what you have is you now have an interesting thing occur to continue the rest of these verses, right? So it's, in fact, to continue the next part of the story that we haven't read yet, but we're about to. The remains of the Liberators' army were rounded up, and roughly 14,000 men were enrolled into the Triumvir's army. Old veterans were discharged back to Italy, but some of the veterans remained in the town of Philippi, which became a Roman colony. Antony remained in the east, while Octavian returned to Italy. The Republican resistance had been definitively crushed at Philippi. So, Isaac trembled. Esau said, an exceedingly great and bitter cry. So, Isaac trembled exceedingly. Greece trembled exceedingly. Then Esau, Isaac trembled exceedingly, and then Esau heard the words of his father. He cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry. And cry is, again, it's another word for war. And he said, bless me also, Father. But he said, your brother came with deceit and taken your blessing. Sorry, there's nothing left. You don't get to do this. You're not going to win. And he said, are you sure? And he said, I have made Rome the master. And not just Rome, the people's choice. Caesar. And now, even if you kill him, Caesar still wins, right? The people, the popularity are still in control. And there's nothing you're going to do. No matter how many men you stack on the field, this isn't going to happen. And what do you know? It didn't happen. I've given it to them. What do you want me to do? You wanted him to. And he said, no, what about me? And he said, nope, you're going to basically work for Rome now. So let's move on to the last part of this chapter. Jacob escapes from Esau. Jacob escapes from the conqueror. The spirit of conquering. And the east, right? So Esau hated Jacob. Now this is interesting because if we took it on a literal basis, if we just said Esau's been destroyed like so many times, but it's not quite right. The spirit of Alexander the Great, and that's what we're actually talking about. The spirit of Alexander is still lingering inside of the culture. So Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing which his father blessed him. These Easterners are still chafing at the idea that Rome, through this Caesar first and second triumvirate thing, is prevailing and winning, right? There's still a little piece of that ancient Greek Empire Hellenistic thing that it can't quite let it go. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Greece as we know it is about to end. Then I will kill my brother, Rome, Jacob, Octavian. And the words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rebecca. The classical democracy. The culture of ancient Greece. So she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, surely your brother Esau comforts himself concerning you by intending to kill you. Now this, if you're following the way I'm describing this story, this is seemingly left field, like, what? But just stick with it It has a payoff. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice, arise, flee to my brother Laban in Haran. And we'll go over Laban in a second, but if you remember the field of Machpelah, Laban featured in that as well. So Laban is like Esau and so many other things. It might have a deeper meaning. Well, it definitely has a deeper meaning, which will be super relevant to this story. And stay with him a few days. And just remember that Genesis or Bible, days, years, months, they're all sort of not literal. Until your brother's fury turns away. Until your brother's anger turns away from you and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereaved also of both of you in one day? And that's an interesting statement as well, because it means that on some level, this act of Esau, like she has to mourn the loss of one of them, but why both of them? But then you'll see way later the Esau pops back up, so it's not only this, but it is exactly, she is going to have to bereave the death of Esau real soon. And some could argue for the third or fourth time, but let us continue. And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife of the daughters of Heth like those who are the daughters of the land. What land? The land. What good will my life be for me? And this foreshadows a death of Rebekah. A death of the classical world that was being continued on by Rome and only Rome at this point. So she's foretelling him that if he doesn't stop, and even if he does stop, there seems to be this hint that she's about to die. So this is a series of maps, and I want us to follow. This was the Liberator Civil War. All right, these are the Liberators. These are the Second Triumvirate. And so you have this West Rome, East Rome split. Jacob and Esau. Jacob and Esau. This is, when we're about to get into this, this is the Antony Octavian split. You have Mark Antony and Octavian. You have a West, East, Jacob, Esau split, which is a reason he pops up later. You have a Western Roman Empire and an Eastern Roman Empire. Remember that when Esau grows weary of his brother, he will throw off his yoke from his neck. 1, 2, 3. And if we even went further and we went all the way back to the first triumph in the Caesar Civil War, you would notice the exact same thing occurred with Caesar and Pompey. You also have this same eastern-western split. And going forward, if you ever want to understand the Bible, that divide is one of the most important concepts that you have to truly embrace. Otherwise, much of these stories you're unable to grasp the deeper meanings without it. So, let's talk about the Second Triumvirate. So this was a direct result of the Liberator Civil War, and we just concluded that with the death of the Senate in the rebellion against Caesar, essentially. And so that has ended in defeat. And so after the Civil War, we had just said that Antony turns east, right? Antony moved to reorganize the wealthy eastern provinces. So another thing, like if you want to understand Ezekiel and Isaiah and Revelation, all of this is like fundamental. And the thing that we don't get in today's world per se is you look at the Middle East and you think they're poor, or at least it was until recently. Now you think of Dubai or whatever, but in the ancient world, Egypt, Syria, Judea, Constantinople, like that, Greece, this is where the money was. This is true in Babylon and Egypt and Assyria and the Hittite. Like as far back as humans had known, that is where the money was in the East. This European Roman thing was fairly new. So and it's so deep. I'm just trying not to go too far with that. Just something to keep your head around. So when Antony moves to reorganize the wealthy eastern provinces, Antony moved first against Parthia, which had aided the liberators, and that's big. So then what you have is Sextus Pompey was one of Pompey's sons, is still out there, and he has to be dealt with. And so Octavian and some other people have to deal with him. And so you have just this moment where the three of the Second Triumvirate are sort of attempting to restabilize the situation. Again, Antony in the east, Octavian in the west. So the end of the triumvirate happens and isn't that an interesting day? December 31st, 33 BC. In the new year, Octavian used force to drive the potentially resurgent consuls from Rome after one of the consuls started to publicly attack him. The consuls fled to the east, and Antony, with several hundred senators, because remember, we've still not eradicated the Senate. It's still a republic. It's not acting very Republican, but it's still officially a republic. So the consuls, who are now in contention with Octavian, fled to the east, and Antony with several hundred senators. And Antony organized into a counter-senate. So he is now attempting to create a new thing in the east. Antony started to move his massive army. Armies are for conquering. Some 100,000 men, a great, giant army, and 800 ships towards Greece. His men debated whether or not they should permit Cleopatra. So we haven't gotten into this, and I think the next one I want to do is gonna be about Cleopatra, but that's the strange part I haven't talked about. So in addition to going east, he's also begun getting cozy with the only remaining Greek power, Egypt. So not only has he gone east, he's gone east. He's going to join forces with her, and we'll get into that. He's been debated. The main argument was that her presence would further Octavian's propaganda, depicting a war in the east. However, moving her would also demoralize some of her own forces, who were fighting for their queen against Rome rather than for Antony, a Roman general. Arriving in Athens, Antony divorced Octavia, and that's another, I can't stress this enough. Don't use me as your historical grounding rod. I'm just sort of hitting the main points so that I can show you that these things work. Octavia would be, I believe it's the sister of I believe, of Octavian. Ben fled Antony's camp for Octavian's friends. Remember, upon opening Octavian leaves, he found that Antony planned to be buried in Alexandria, would recognize Caesarion as Caesar's son, and give large portions of Roman land to his children with Cleopatra. And that's the stuff we'll get into. Antony's forces in Greece provoked panic in Italy. Octavian, no longer calling himself Triumvir, but retaining his provincial commands, reorganized defense of the peninsula. He organized a civil oath to his personal leadership, unprecedented Republican history, declaring war on Cleopatra. Octavian also had the Republic strip Antony of his legal position. So he's going to act as the defender of the Republic. Rebecca came to Jacob and said, "Your brother..." Let's go read that again. Now the words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rebekah. So she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, "Surely your brother Esau comforts himself concerning you by intending to kill you." Just remember that verse. Oh, God. And then come back. Declaring war on Cleopatra. So he organized a defense. Esau is going to kill him. The east is going to attack the west with this giant 100,000, 800 ship army. Early in the campaign season, 131, Agrippa launched a series of surprise attacks on western Greek harbors under Antony's control. Octavian moved quickly to take beachheads. After cutting off his supplies and escaping land, Antony and Cleopatra engaged in a sea battle, attempting to break out with his remaining fleet. They fought at the Battle of Actium. Antony and Cleopatra were able to flee through a gap in line, which was the plan, but most of his fleet did not follow and returned to port after the battle. Most of the forces in Greece surrendered. Troubled by their man, Octavian marched on Egypt in pursuit of its booty. He marched overland on the Mediterranean coast, and he engaged negotiations with Cleopatra, but they broke down. Later that month, Octavian arrived at Alexandria and sacked the city. He killed Caesarion and Antony's heir, but he captured Cleopatra's children for his triumph. Antony and Cleopatra committed suicide. So, what this leads to is the Roman Empire. So the Roman Empire, so here we go. By 100 BC, Rome had expanded its rule to most of the Mediterranean and beyond. However, it was severely destabilized by civil wars and political conflicts. That's exactly what all of this has been about with this last video or two, which culminated in the victory of Octavian over Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium, and the subsequent conquest of the Ptolemaic kingdom in Egypt, which then ended any Greek Hellenistic kingdoms. They were all at this point fully in the control of Rome. Sort of. We still have to deal with Jerusalem, but there's still Roman client states. The Roman Senate granted Octavian overarching power and the new title of Augustus, marking his accession as the first Roman emperor of a monarchy, with Rome as its sole capital. Rome is now one big entity. It is no longer split. It is Rome, and it is no longer the Roman Republic. It is now the Roman Empire. So what I need us to do is we're going to go back to the last couple verses where Rebecca is talking. So she just warned him, hey, Esau's trying to kill you, which he was, and she told him something very interesting. And that's how this all works, right? One piece on its own does not, but we are literally, this entire chapter is the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Empire. Can I prove it? Yeah, watch this shit. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice, arise, flee to my brother Laban in Haran, and stay with him a few days until your brother's fury turns away. Until your brother's anger turns away from you and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereaved also of both of you in one day? And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife of the daughters of Heth, like those who are the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me? And so, let's talk about what she just said. She said, go to the land of Laban, in Haran. He's the brother of Rebekah. Go to Laban. Go to noble, glorious, shining. Go to the noble land of my brother Haran, the elevated, strong, exalted mountain, the high place. Go to the noble high place. Oh, you don't want to call it king? Call it Caesar. The noble high place. Go to the noble high place. Go be a king. Oh, your brother's going to kill you? Go be a king. Go to Laban. And Laban will show up. Go to kingship. What good is my life? Go to the kingship. Go be an emperor. You still don't believe me? And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. Because of the daughters of the broken and the weakened and the destroyed and the filled with fear and the terrified. So there had been about 100 years of turmoil, of Heth. Rome was completely in turmoil. The daughters, the culture had become chaos because of everybody trying to grab power. And so what did Rebekah say? She said, I am weary of my life. What good is being a republic if it's opened the door to so many people trying to abuse its power to become the ultimate ruler? The only way to stop a power struggle is to become the power. A power so strong that it can no longer be challenged, at least for a time. Go to Laban. Go be the strongest person around. Let's put a stop to this. And if you've got to give up democracy for the pursuit of stability, don't marry more chaos, is what she said. She said, if Jacob takes more of these, if he marries this chaos, it will be the end of the classical world. It will be the end of the beautiful culture that had been created. So she sent him to her brother, Laban, nobility. And so what follows this would then be the story of Jacob heading up to go meet his uncle and then running into Rachel and marrying Leah and Rachel and having the children. So this is like immediately before that. His mother sends him away to protect his life. And what was the name of this little portion of chapter 27? I think it's very interesting. It's something that we really need to get our little heads around. And so it is called Jacob Escapes from Esau. Rome escapes from the conquering Hellenistic world. And so when you sit in your high school history class, it all seems so simple. Rome was a republic. that Rome was an empire. And it's just like this sentence. But in fact, 100 years, that means from now until before World War II, just chaos of people trying to gain control. That's more than a human lifetime. That's 1.5 people long. But you have multiple, so you're probably looking at 4 generations of chaos. Yeah, by all means, grab the power and make it so strong that stability must follow in its wake. And we'll get into this, but it's interesting that immediately after the creation of the empire, Rome enters something called Pax Romana, the Peace of Rome. And so to escape from a conqueror, sometimes it requires extraordinary measures. And just kind of to wrap this up, some of you may be doubting how any of this works, and you might be thinking this is just pure nonsense. I mean, in my mind, we are stumbling upon what, if you understand this and project it through the whole Bible, it's like a message from somewhere else, somebody else, something else, saying, hey, wait, you don't have to do, there's a better way. You've already done this before. Here, look. But in addition to that, this idea that you can take a mythical story and actually tell a real history, right? I think that's where, especially if you're a true blue Bible believer, this is gonna never work for you, ever, for any reason. But some of you, and I guess that's who this is really for, you can see what I'm saying, but you're still like, I don't know. Because it's still almost too borderline supernatural. Like, how could this be true? Now, luckily, this story is old enough where you can still justify that somebody wrote this after it happened. And if I was you, I would go look into how old Genesis is, as far as like what pieces of Genesis. Can they find scraps of Genesis with these words older than the event? And I'm going to bet that most likely it's right around the beginning of all this. It's probably somewhere where those scraps are located, historically speaking. Or right after this, historically speaking. So, we're still, you can almost get out of this, right? It doesn't have to be strangely miraculous yet. We'll get to that. But what I do want to offer is, I believe, and this one definitely happened after, so that part we can be comforted with, is there's another almost equally famous story that I believe is telling you the exact same event. And it probably never occurred to you. I don't even know if it occurred to the people who wrote it. I think it did. But let's say it, I don't have any evidence it did, but I think there might be veins of humans that can know things that I don't know, that I'm not privy to. But let's imagine a great republic. A story of a great republic, full of heroes and good. And that republic falls to an empire. And that act of republic becoming an empire is like the centerpiece. And the figure who needed to be the savior of the republic became the progenitor of the empire. The empire that became so strong that it almost seemed like unbeatable. It was so far past these puny republic, like these poor souls clinging to the edge of this old dying idea. So they had to go underground and form a rebel alliance to fight against the evil empire. And their hero just happens to be the son of the very creator of the empire. And so the good guys will be the republic, the old democratic ways, who no matter what will hold these secrets and these truths, and they will do what it takes for as long as it takes to never forget, and to do whatever dirty work they need to do to end this empire and revive the old republic. And it will become strangely interesting how that is so on point with history. I mean, what were World War I and World War II if not the return of the Rebel Alliance defeating the Empire once and for all? Any vestiges of this old Roman Sith was finally destroyed, crushed, and the whole world was brought under the New Republic. But before we get to a New Republic, and the Republican revolutions of 1848, and all of that beginning with Napoleon, we have to get there, right? And we have to get through Rome. But Rome was a republic, right? So we are now to the point where Rome has become the great beast of the ancient times that haunts us to this day, whose very language drips out of the mouths of half of Europe, whose borders were created all from a 2,000-year-old group of people. So I think that's it for Jacob for today. Next time, I think we're going to pick up. We're going to dabble in Egypt and how that relates. How Egypt, because I did say before this episode that Esau was Jacob, and yet I showed you that Esau was not, or Esau was Egypt, and in this episode we did not reinforce that. So all of these things are going to be true. That's it.